The sky above Sentinel Station was the color of unfinished steel, its weight pressing down on the icy tarmac as wind swept fine snow across frozen ground. Inside the main hangar, red warning lights blinked in rhythm from tall radar towers, casting brief flickers across armored drones and polished displays. Defense vendors milled around in branded parkas. Pilots leaned against railings with gloved hands, and far at the back behind a cluster of servers and flight terminals, an F-15EX sat idle on static display, frost still clinging to the rims of its canopy. Lauren stepped through the east entry, her boots nearly silent on the metal flooring. She wore unmarked tactical outerwear, her badge clipped plainly at her chest, the edges worn from travel. No entourage followed, no insignia on her sleeves. Her presence barely registered until she paused near a telemetry feed and tilted her head, noticing a flicker in the drone track pattern. Quietly, she spoke. "You've got a gap in the acquisition arc. Top left quadrant. It's blind from..." Sasha turned, sleek and polished, brows raised. "Thanks. We'll let the interns know." A few others chuckled, assuming Lauren was lost. Ethan, a young pilot with mirrored sunglasses resting on his collar, smirked. "Flight decks 2 zones south. Coffee's over there, if that's what you're really here for." Someone nearby snapped a photo. Another started recording. The group half expected an outburst or apology, but Lauren only nodded, her expression unreadable. She stepped back without a word and moved down the line of terminals, unnoticed now except for the faint trail of slush on her boots. Behind her, the drone's telemetry flickered again. No one else looked. The F-15EX stayed silent, snow slowly gathering beneath its wings. Lauren moved beyond the hangar, following a narrow service path that curved around the outer rim of Sentinel Station. The Arctic wind tugged at the edges of her hood as she stepped past a row of decommissioned antenna towers, their ribs glazed with ice. Snow crunched under her boots in crisp, deliberate rhythm. Her breath rose in short, even clouds. The summit noise faded behind her, replaced by the low hum of rotating radar dishes on the ridge and the occasional distant howl of a storm building over the water. She paused near the fence line, facing the northern strip where no one else wandered. Out there, past the landing lights half buried in drifts, the F-15X stood alone. Frost coated its airframe, and the vapor trails left by the earlier test flight were already swallowed by the sky. Her eyes held on the jet's cold surface like it might speak. A decade ago, she flew something just like it, older, louder, heavier, but it still responded when she breathed against the stick. That mission hadn't started with a siren. No alarms, just a slow-developing breach on a remote sensor line near Thule Station. The drone was small, dark, and clever. It behaved like it was lost until it wasn't. Command hesitated. She didn't. She intercepted in complete silence, shut down the rogue unit using a maneuver she'd developed during long, unpaid nights running EM tests in wind tunnels. She'd used low-band echo pulses to mask its return feed, drew it into a blind pocket of radar, and forced its emergency override to engage. It touched down intact. No damage, no international panic. They filed it under Joint Aerial Containment Protocol, Arctic Sector. No named pilot, no credit. A senior officer had been standing near her console during the debrief. He signed the report. The maneuver was classified, archived, then slowly disappeared from doctrine altogether. She hadn't flown since. Her hand found the scratched patch on her jacket, a dull rectangle of metal sewn to her sleeve. It had once carried her squadron's emblem, now faded, unreadable from cold wear. No one asked what it meant anymore. She'd stopped telling the story. These days, she worked quietly for a civilian systems firm tracking telemetry integrity, identifying drift failure rates, auditing air corridor traffic across northern regions. Her invite to Skywatch 9 hadn't even used her last name. Just Lauren. Observational technical clearance. She came only to watch. She wasn't supposed to speak. But the pattern she'd seen in the hangar wasn't noise. The Phantom 7's data echo hadn't just blinked, it bent. curved slightly, accelerated by half a degree over a fixed arc, the same misbehavior she'd seen during that forgotten mission over the pole. The same signal stutter. That drone wasn't on rails. It was looking for something, or following an override. She turned from the fence and walked toward the service corridor that led back to the facility. A cargo sled passed her, trailing exhaust. She kept her hood up. The mess hall at Sentinel was warm but sterile, all metal benches and reinforced windows that reflected snow like glass murals. Lauren took a seat in the far corner, sipping lukewarm tea from a dented thermos. A group of vendors passed behind her, trailing laughter. Nina's voice, polished and cool, drifted over the hum of vending machines. "Is she still here? The one from the telemetry booth?" Someone else laughed. No idea who invited her. No unit, no patch, no name. "She's watching the ice like it's going to answer." Lauren didn't turn. The sound rolled over her like static, meaningless, familiar. She looked down at the monitor clipped to her wristband. The tracking line was back. Still bending. Still wrong. They hadn't seen it. They wouldn't. But she had, and she remembered. The control gallery inside Sentinel's upper bay was sleek and bright, lined with projection walls and glass-paneled data tables that flickered with real-time radar feeds. Representatives from multiple aerospace firms stood shoulder to shoulder, coffee steaming in gloved hands as Sasha launched into her telemetry walkthrough. Beside her, Cole tapped at a glowing terminal, adjusting feed contrast while several uniformed observers leaned in to follow. "Phantom 7 is mid-course now," Sasha said, her voice crisp and performative. "A clean patrol arc. 15-minute drift loop. All hands off." Lauren stood near the side rail, half shadowed by the lighting and the camera crew that had clustered in for footage. She kept her gaze locked on the far right monitor. Something was wrong. The curve in the drone's return loop was subtle but familiar. Not lag. Not software. Latency. It was moving ahead of command inputs, anticipating adjustments it shouldn't know to make. The signal flickered just for a second, and then the drone's telemetry smoothed too cleanly, like it had self-corrected from outside the loop. "That deviation," Lauren said quietly, pointing to the upper corner of the screen. "It's not simulated. It's breaking from feedlock." Sasha turned toward her with an indulgent smile. "That's a standard buffer reset. You'll see it any time we're uplinking mid-path." She didn't wait for a reply. Cole gave a shrug and added, "We wrote the pathing code. If something was off, we'd know." "I've seen this pattern before," Lauren said, still watching the screen. "That echo's synthetic. It's not coming from the control channel." A small pause followed. Then Ethan, posted behind the crowd with his arms folded, chuckled. "Still on about this. You think you're spotting ghosts again? Let the engineers do the spotting." A few people near the back laughed. One of the vendors raised a phone to take a casual picture. Lauren didn't turn. The telemetry flickered again, barely perceptible. She leaned in. "Can I see the raw echo data?" she asked, voice low. Sasha snorted. "You're not cleared for that level of sim analysis." Ethan muttered. "It's always the quiet ones who think they've cracked the code." Someone handed Lauren a cold bottle of water, then paused, hesitated, and took it back. "Sorry. These are for speakers only." The dismissal came with a polite smile, but the sting landed all the same. On screen, Phantom 7 continued its sweep, but the track no longer aligned with the controller loop. Cole adjusted the filters. "Must be a graphic glitch. It's just about to curve." But it didn't. Outside, across the open ridge just beyond the viewing windows, a technician stepped into the cold air to adjust a comms relay. He paused, looked up. There was a shape in the sky, thin, low, moving far too fast for a bird and too quiet for a fighter. Inside, a voice broke the hum of conversation. "Hey, what's that?" The glass viewing wall magnified the outside world. A dark speck cut across the horizon, trailing no contrail, no beacon, just motion. "Is that part of the demo?" someone asked. Then a shout. "Missile inbound." Panic surged like an electric current. Phones flew up, chairs scraped. Sasha froze. Cole stammered. Ethan stepped back from the console and stared at the screen. The Phantom 7's feed had gone black. No return signal, no beacon, no IFF, no command handshake. It had dropped into true stealth. Marcus, in the control room above, raised a hand to his headset. "We've lost uplink. Phantom 7's not responding to recall." A murmur passed through the gallery like wind against glass. Lauren stood still, watching the sky outside. She saw the motion, the arc, the speed. She saw the shadow cut from cloud to cloud, curving in the same cold pattern she'd seen once before, in an airspace no one had wanted to admit was real. She knew exactly what it was doing. It was in seek mode, autonomous, or hijacked. "This isn't a simulation anymore," she said aloud, though no one seemed to hear. Phones buzzed. Screens refreshed. The gallery emptied into chaos, guests stumbling for cover while officers scrambled for updates. No alarms sounded. There was no protocol for this only hesitation. Lauren's eyes returned to the telemetry panel. It had frozen entirely. No system had confirmed the breach. But she had. The gallery was chaos now. Panels blinked with red warnings, but no official alarm had been triggered. Voices collided, some demanding confirmation, others insisting it was still a simulation glitch. Outside, the shape in the sky grew clearer, cutting against the clouds with surgical speed. Phantom 7 was inbound, closing on the summit perimeter, and no one was willing to call it what it was: an active breach, a threat. Inside the tower, Connor turned from his station, jaw tense. "We need a launch now. I don't care if it's for demo or not." Grant, older and more cautious, shook his head. "No pilots cleared. The standby jet isn't armed. We wait for confirmation." Lauren didn't speak. She stepped out of the side access corridor, coat flaring in the sudden crosswind, and began walking toward the flight line. No one noticed at first. She passed under the stuttering floodlights, boots cracking against snow-packed concrete, until the shadow of the jet came into full view. The F-15EX sat alone, gleaming faintly in the Arctic dusk. The snow had gathered in shallow drifts along its wing edges. Its nose was angled slightly to the sky. Quiet, patient. A voice rang out behind her. "Ma'am, that jet's not authorized. Please return to the building." A security officer jogged across the ice behind her, slowed as she approached the ladder, and hesitated. Something in her movement, not hesitation, but certainty, stopped him. Lauren gripped the ladder rails. Her gloves brushed frost from the metal rungs as she climbed, one steady step after another. She opened the cockpit canopy with a practiced lift, fingers brushing against the frozen latch as though she'd never left the seat. Inside, the harness straps were coiled neatly. The control panel blinked in standby blue. She powered it live with a tap. From the tower, voices scrambled. "Who's on the pad?" someone barked. On the open channel, Ethan's voice crackled in disbelief. "Who the hell is Echo Gray?" Marcus, staring through the tower glass, leaned forward. His voice dropped. "It's her. She's flying." Lauren's hands moved without pause. Gloved fingers adjusted the fuel mix, toggled the flight check, tapped the targeting systems offline. This wasn't about weapons. It never had been. The drone was moving fast, but she knew its arc. She knew where it would go next. She had memorized its behavior years ago. The engines roared to life with a low, rising pulse that cracked across the field. The sound silenced every voice outside. Vendors, officers, and tech reps turned as one toward the jet. Most didn't recognize her. Some did. None moved. Lauren lowered the canopy, locked her helmet into place, and whispered into the mic. "Echo Gray. Lifting." The tower tried to stall, but the jet was already rolling. The tires spit snow as she guided it to the runway's edge. The wind sheared sideways. Visibility dropped to a veil of haze and ice mist. But she didn't hesitate. The moment came. She pressed forward. The F-15EX tore through the cold like it belonged to her. It did. The takeoff wasn't dramatic. It was exact. Her ascent carved a narrow path into the cloud layer, one clean arc above the station where everyone below watched in stillness. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. She had waited long enough. The upper Arctic sky opened around her like a silent vault, endless and pale, a world suspended in steel. Lauren leveled the F-15EX above the frozen coast, the jet's twin engines leaving no trail behind her, only tremors of displaced air that shimmered briefly before vanishing into cold. The terrain below stretched into cracked ice fields and shifting snow dunes, marked only by the darker lines of half-buried mountain ridges. There were no roads, no cities, no signals, just air and memory. She scanned the forward horizon. The Phantom 7 didn't announce itself. It slid into view like a shadow peeling away from the clouds, small, dark, fast. Its nose was angled off-center, banking low, not weaving aimlessly. It was scanning. Lauren's grip tightened as she adjusted heading and throttle. The drone had dropped off all radar returns. It was flying dark, independent of uplink. They still hadn't confirmed if it was armed, but she already knew it was dangerous not because of a warhead, but because of what it could start. Its movement was nearly identical to the one she'd seen years ago, just above the Baltic shelf. That one had approached slow, gained speed at the wrong moment, and adjusted course before uplink failed. It wasn't the signature of malfunction. It was the behavior of a system given too much leash. And now here it was again, in a different sky, with a different name, still unclaimed by any command. Lauren pushed the throttle and climbed higher before descending through the angle the drone had just crossed. She rolled under it and swung left to a line. The speed difference was dangerous. Too fast and she'd blow past. Too slow and she'd lose the arc. Her helmet display showed the drone hovering just ahead, nearly indistinguishable from cloud reflection. She flipped open the ECM panel. The Talon Reaper system wasn't designed for combat. It was a testbed experimental code that mimicked command pulses and rerouted them using paired ghost echoes. She had once helped write its earliest forms. It had never gone operational, until now. The drone adjusted slightly, as if reacting to her position. Lauren held course. She rolled belly up beneath it and stabilized. The gap between them shrank to a controlled tension. Then she triggered the first pulse, a soft crackle through her helmet as the burst deployed a whisper of signal scatter. No response. The drone held its line. She tried again, this time layering in a decoy uplink pattern. It was a guess, but an educated one. These systems learned. If this one still carried the neural training she suspected, it would recognize her as command if she could echo just enough of the previous structure. The drone hesitated, wobbled. In the tower, Connor stood beside Marcus, staring at the screen. She's not firing. Marcus leaned closer to the console. She's guiding it. Lauren matched the drone's next arc, then nudged the decoy signal again. She began pulling it right over open water, beyond the summit corridor. If it was going to fall, it had to land where no one stood to claim blame. Her hands were steady, breathing level. The jet vibrated with each correction. Through the canopy, she could just make out the soft green flicker of the drone's status beacon, a small, pulsing light tucked near its tail. It had returned. It was visible again. One final command. She rolled slightly and dove beneath it, pushing the drone's sensor field into an overload pattern. Then she throttled back, created a pressure void, and broke line. It followed. For several long seconds, nothing happened. Then the drone banked. Not a sharp, evasive maneuver, but a smooth, deliberate correction. Its altitude dropped in increments. No fire, no brake, no crash. Lauren's HUD pinged with the change. Descent initiated. Power loss sequence activated. It was surrendering. She watched as it descended into the far edge of the sea shelf, where snow-covered ice jutted like broken teeth. It hovered briefly, engines fading to a soft hum, and touched down without force. The light at its tail dimmed, then went dark. Lauren exhaled, From the tower, a technician whispered. It landed. Connor didn't speak. Neither did Marcus. On the main board, a new tag had appeared next to the drone's ID intercept logged. Echo Gray. Lauren pulled her jet into a slow turn, leaving the frozen plateau behind. The sky stretched wide and empty before her. There was no celebration in her voice, no flourish, only a clipped, quiet confirmation. Target neutralized. No discharge. Intercept complete. She banked west and guided the F-15EX back toward Sentinel Station. Her gloved hand stayed firm on the throttle, the scar across her knuckle white in the cockpit light. No missiles, no fanfare. Just memory, precision, and a name restored. The hangar was silent. Not from fear this time, but from something deeper recognition. On the main monitor, the feed replayed in crisp resolution the F-15EX banking beneath the drone. Lauren's control steady and surgical. No weapons fired. The Phantom 7's descent was graceful, precise, and undeniable. A frozen drone lay motionless on a sea shelf hundreds of kilometers north, its sensor beacon pulsing once, then fading out. The visual didn't need commentary. It spoke for itself. In the control gallery, no one moved. Phones were still raised, live streams still active, but no one had the words to fill the space. The footage looped again, her jet aligning beneath the drone, pulsing the echo, guiding it without aggression. She had reached into the void and neutralized the threat without striking once. It wasn't just interception, it was command. A data tech near the rear pulled up a classified file in the maneuver protocol archives, his brow furrowing as he scrolled through the system logs. Talon Reaper spoof sequence. It's in here, but there's no name, just date, sector tag, and pilot designation redacted. David, standing quietly near the back wall, stepped forward. His voice wasn't loud, but it landed like a dropped weight. She's the one. That maneuver was buried. I remember the test. They pulled it. Buried the name, too. Sasha didn't respond. She stared at the screen, unmoving. Her jaw was set, her shoulders frozen in place. Ethan took a slow step back, lowering his head as the footage played once more. The arc of Lauren's intercept drawn cleanly against the sky. A voice came over the station intercom. Calm. Official. Interception confirmed. No casualties. Airspace secure. Pilot designation, Echo Gray. Credit pending final log review. Connor, still standing at the console, didn't take his eyes off the feed. She made it dance without firing. That's legacy stuff. Marcus stood. Echo Gray is Lauren. She saved this base. Across the summit floor, the mood shifted. People who had turned away hours earlier now leaned in, their expressions tight, unsure how to reconcile what they'd just witnessed with who they thought she was. Phones buzzed with headlines and screen captures. One tech influencer labeled her the Arctic Ghost, the name already catching traction in real time as thousands watched the intercept video roll across defense news streams. Outside, the F-15EX taxied back across the icy runway. The engines wound down, the canopy opened, and Lauren climbed out alone. Her helmet hung loose in one hand, breath slow against the Arctic air. A small crowd had gathered on the edge of the field officers, analysts, contractors. None spoke. They just watched her approach. She didn't slow. She didn't lift her head. She walked past them all, boots crunching in the snow, the wind catching the edge of her collar. The same badge still clipped to her jacket, the same quiet expression. Back inside the gallery, someone had pulled the archived maneuver record onto the main display. The file name had updated, in bold white letters across the screen. It now read, Echo Gray Intercept Protocol, Pilot Lauren. No one asked her to explain. They didn't need to. They had seen it with their own eyes. The debrief room was quiet, lit only by a low-ceiling lamp and the soft flicker of a terminal screen. Lauren sat with her helmet on the table, the visor fogged faintly from residual cold. Her gloves rested beside it, fingers curled inward like they still remembered the throttle. She didn't fidget. She didn't speak. The silence wasn't awkward. It was earned. A young officer entered without a word, carrying a printed incident log. He set it down carefully in front of her, nodded once, and stepped back. Her name was printed clearly across the top. Lauren, Echo Gray, intercept confirmed, protocol executed. She read it once, then again, not to memorize it, but to confirm it was real. Grant appeared a few moments later, his voice formal and measured. On behalf of the station and the summit, thank you. You saved us. Lauren gave a single nod. Her voice was low, even, file it clean. That was all she said. Later, in the summit's closing montage, a short segment played to a muted audience. Thermal footage captured her jet in high-altitude formation, wings nearly parallel with the Phantom 7 as it began its descent. The two shapes hung motionless against the Arctic sky, caught in a moment of balance. No audio, no commentary, just the quiet ballet of precision. Lauren didn't watch it. By the time the room filled again with chatter, applause, and half-hearted attempts at networking, she was already outside. The wind had picked up. Snow dust swirled around the runway edges. She stood near the perimeter fence with her pack slung low and her helmet in one hand. David found her there. He didn't say much, just a quiet line, almost lost in the wind. They don't get to forget again. I saw it this time. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. In the command tent, Marcus finished updating the terminal. A new entry pulsed across the digital board. Echo Gray identified. Intercept logged. Flight tag L. A tech nearby replayed the cockpit audio, her voice soft and steady through the headset. Target visually confirmed. Maneuver engaged. Tracking offline. Far above, a satellite still tracked the crash site. The Phantom 7 lay intact on a sheet of blue-white ice, surrounded by a ring of untouched snow. No tracks, no smoke, just the wind moving in slow circles around what could have been disaster. News alerts lit up across the northern networks, each headline naming her at last. But she wasn't reading them. She was already unhooking her gear, packing it tight, preparing to leave. Her role was finished. There was nothing left to fix. She stepped away from the base as the sky cleared overhead. The air was sharp, the horizon empty. She didn't look back. This time, her name would stay where it belonged, and that was enough. Some people wait a lifetime to be seen. Others stop waiting and simply act. Lauren never needed applause, just the truth written down. In a world that dismissed her, she stood quietly until it mattered, and when it did, she rose without permission, corrected the course, and walked away without asking for recognition. Her story is a reminder that strength doesn't always shout. Sometimes it waits. It remembers. And when the moment comes, it knows exactly what to do. If you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or erased, remember this. Your worth isn't measured by who notices you, but by what you carry through the silence. We hope Lauren's story stayed with you. Share your thoughts in the comments and follow for more quiet, powerful stories that speak louder than words.